Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ and I teach theology. This is a podcast on the StarQuest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 215 and we're covering Apostolicum Exercitatum 13 on the Apostolate in the social milieu. And social milieu here means the kind of social situation, work, school, social clubs, community, etc. that most people are in. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican and frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday we spoke about apostolate by and for young adults is important to build up the church. Today we're going to continue with chapter 3, and we're going to cover the various fields of apostolate. And the summary is it's duty to lay people to imbue their work, family, social life, etc. with the gospel. So we have 4 subparagraphs. Subparagraph D is like one line, but because it's so different from C, I'm going to read them all individually. So we are on 13.8. Laity must, as in capitalized all caps, must, imbue their social milieu with the gospel. 13b, Christian laity should conform their lives to Christ, having solidarity with all. C, reach out to all in word, not just testimony. And D, children should do apostolate. So let's get right into that. We'll read paragraph 13a. The apostolate in the social milieu, that is, the effort to infuse a Christian spirit in the mentality, customs, laws, structure of the community in which one lives, is so much the duty and responsibility of the laity that it can never be performed properly by others. In this area, the laity can exercise the apostolate of like toward like. It is here that they complement the testimony of life with the testimony of the word. It is here where they work or practice a profession or study or reside or spend their leisure time or have the companionship that they are more capable of helping out their brethren. So this subparagraph really gives us the overview of what this whole paragraph is talking about. And one of the things we notice here is that lay people live in the world. You live in the world. You go to a company, most of you probably go to a company that's for profit to go to work, or a school or something like that. You go to teach at a school, or you go to work for the government, or you go to work for a company that's trying to make money, things like that. And you need to sanctify this world. And one of the things is that each layperson lives in different social milieu, and almost all of them live in more than one social milieu. Because you live in your community, you live with your kids' school, you live with your work, you live with your social club, maybe your hobbies, maybe you're into bowling or into hockey or whatever else, either playing or watching hockey. And so you have those social groups. And how is the gospel coming into each of those social groups? That's the social milieu. Those are the social milieus in which you live. And oftentimes people like myself, priests or religious, can't really enter into those areas. As a priest, if I show up at most job sites, it's tough. It doesn't really work out. Now, I can help out my dad on the farm and things like that when I'm with him, but in most places, it just feels awkward for me as a priest to be helping out with some kind of work and things like that in areas that I'm not an expert in. Obviously, I can do things that I'm an expert in. There's the sacraments, there's all this preaching, there's all the kind of spiritual or theological things I can share. But a lot of these require people who are like the others. Another employee on the factory floor, another person who is in the bowling club, things like that. And that's important. And this first thing is this testimony. Nobody wants to be like a Karen. So if you're just a Karen, and I use Karen here in quotes, not that people who actually name Karen are fine, but that kind of attitude doesn't attract anybody. It actually sends people away. So in being this testimony, we have to live a positive Christian life. We want to live with Jesus in us in this positive way, not this kind of like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, wrong. There's kind of this stereotype of the Bible thumper in certain media, and that's not what we should model ourselves after. We should model ourselves after Jesus and how he loved everyone, how he's always positive. And we need to live like that. Now moving on, 13b talks about Christian laity should conform their lives to Christ, having solidarity with all. Let's read it. B. The laity fulfill this mission of the church in the world, especially by conforming their lives to their faith, so that they become the light of the world, as well as by practicing honesty in all their dealings. so that they attract all to the love of the true and the good, and finally to the church and to Christ. They fulfill their mission also by fraternal charity, which presses them to share in the living conditions, labors, sorrows, and aspirations of their brethren, with the result that the hearts of all about them are quietly prepared for the workings of saving grace. Another requisite for the accomplishment of their task is a full consciousness of their role in building up society, whereby they strive to perform their domestic, social, and professional duties, with such Christian generosity that their manner of acting should gradually penetrate the whole world of life and labor. This is really interesting. We all need to have our lives conformed to Christ. Each person, each layperson, each priest, each religious, obviously, but every single layperson too. It's modeled on Christ in different ways. The saints are all different. You have saints who are going out and being soldiers heroic there. You have saints who are contemplative and don't leave the monastery, and all the different in between. This way we are salt to the world. The lay people who are this computer programmer, the lay person who's the plumber, a lay person who's an electrician, a lay person who is a crane operator, whatever other kind of jobs you can have, all those jobs need to be transformed with the gospel. The baseball team, the softball team, the Magic, the Gathering Club, all etc. All these things need to be transformed with the gospel. And what moves us with this? We're moved by solidarity. This is how it talks about how we share with the needy. We don't just say, hey, look at us, we're so wonderful, and then we see the poor person starving beside us and say nothing. No, we try and help them. No, obviously, we aren't responsible for every single poor person, and unless you are Jeff Bezos or something like that, you're very likely not able to help every single poor person you might encounter. And then we build up society through these various roles. They're various but important roles. We need Jesus in the boardroom, Jesus on the factory floor, Jesus in the construction site, etc. Now we move to subparagraph C on reaching out to all in word, not just testimony. C. This apostolate should reach out to all, whenever they may be encountered, wherever they may be encountered. It should not exclude any spiritual or temporal benefit which they have the ability to confer. True apostles, however, are not content with this activity alone, but endeavor to announce Christ to their neighbors, by means of the spoken word as well. For then there are many persons who can hear the gospel and recognize Christ only through the laity who live near them. This is important for all of you. You need to reach all people, both all people and all social circumstances, because most people have multiple social milieux in which they live, and they need to be touched in each of those. Now, it might be a different layperson who's touched them in the various ones. They have one person who they're on the PTA with in their kids' school, one person at their job, etc. And through these various touches, they're moved towards Christianity. And we might be one of the touches and not realize it at times. But we have to keep being that testimony, being that light, being that salt in the world to give the world its flavor. But that's not it. We need to announce Jesus too, but by word. We don't just give testimony, we also give by word. And some people will only believe if the laity near them help them, if the laity near them explain it. Because I go in, I'm a priest, like, okay, you're like employed, you're on Jesus' payroll. Of course, you're going to say believe in Jesus. But this layperson who's not on the payroll or anything like that, whatever this person might think, is often able to reach areas that I can't as a priest. Now let's move on to 13D, which is very simple. Children should do apostolate. Let's read it. Children also have their own apostolic work to do according to their ability. They are true living witnesses of Christ among their companions. If we go back to the beginning of this document, and we've talked about before, the basis for the lay apostolate is baptism. Because we're baptized, we're called to be apostles. Now, my nephew in second grade is baptized, so he's called to do apostolate. Now, obviously, he can't do many things that adults can do, but he can still witness to his friends. He can still tell them about Jesus. He can still invite them to the group he goes to at the church or whatever else. And he can do that. Now, a lot of the apostles they wouldn't do alone. They do it with their family. If you go back, I think it's 2 days, we were talking about the family apostolate. And lay people, lay kids, well, all kids would be lay people, are often doing that with their parents. If my sister says, hey, we're going to go and pack lunches for the homeless people, my nephew in second grade can help out. He's smart enough to make a sandwich if you give him instructions or put a sandwich into a Ziploc bag to hand out to the homeless people. He can do that. with his mom or with his dad, things like that. So those are the reality. That's the reality. Everyone from baptism is called, including children. That concludes today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast. You can help StarQuest to produce it by donating at sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time monthly or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow, we will conclude this chapter, chapter 3 of Apostolic Axiositatem, with the final paragraph 14, on working nationally and internationally, not just locally. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. If you want more information on the podcast, like playlists for individual documents and a reading plan, go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X.
Amen.